Welcome to Mental Health Dumpster Fire, a podcast where therapists give their real opinions on mental health, relationships, parenting, and pop culture. Hosted by Courtney, licensed clinical social worker, and Jess Miller, art therapist. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and cannot be used as a substitute for therapy. We cannot provide mental health services via this podcast or social media. We occasionally use explicit language in our podcast and discuss serious mental health and relationship issues. Please use discretion if you are listening with children. We hope you enjoy the show. Don't forget to subscribe.
But then we would have to pay them by having them live on the commune with us.
Well, yeah.
Which would be fair.
That's the commune.
Yeah. And
you help build the commune, you live on the commune.
Yeah. And they all have partners that are like nurses and dietitians.
Perfect.
One's a physical therapist, I think. Something like that.
You got all your needs taken care of.
Right.
You'll never have to leave.
Yeah. All there.
Do you want to do the introduction on your weeks?
Sure. What do I say? Welcome to Mental Health Dumpster Fire.
That's it.
I had a brain fart. What podcast am I on? The only one that I do. Today we're going to talk about some stuff. I am doing a little bit of a deep dive on D&D, specifically D&D and mental health, but I'm going to have to split it up into two parts. There's so much research and like dense research on D&D and mental health and just so much background that you need to know before you can understand the research. I had to split it up into two chunks. Yeah. So today is going to be more about like, what is D&D? Where did it come from? How does it work? And then a little bit into like therapeutically how role play kind of works and how that could work in D&D. And then part two, I'm going to dive into the research and get into the nitty gritty specifics of here's why it helps with mental health and how it can be used.
Okay.
So, what experience do you have with D&D?
Very, very little.
Okay. What do you know about it?
I know the general concept, and I looked into like the rules and stuff once because I had a client who was into D&D, and I was trying to like make our own campaign, but like adapt it to, because I didn't know all the rules, and also just adapt it to like what he needed. And so I spent a lot of time making stories and characters and maps and all this stuff, and then we played one time and he was like, there's not enough action, and I was like, okay, well, we gotta set up the story, and he never wanted to play again.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time for no reason. And then once I did a one shot with some friends, but it wasn't like he made up his own thing, and we were like the different characters and races that you could be, but we were like supposed to be like at a summer camp, like we were high schoolers at a summer camp, but like with the abilities and stuff. Yeah. So, and that was like a couple hours. So it was fun. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you've at least played like a one shot before. Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah. So that's basically a lot of what D&D is the DM, dungeon master, or game master. People, they mean kind of the same thing basically. People just prefer like game master sometimes over dungeon master if the game is not just dungeons.
Yeah.
But that person is in control of kind of like the world that your characters are in. And then the players each take on a different character with different like class, different abilities, backstories, and all that kind of stuff. So that's basically how D&D, that's the basics of it right there. There's a guy or a gal or someone who builds the world. There's characters that play in that world, and you roll dice to tell the story. So the dice is what gives it like the chance or like the luck of the game.
Yeah.
Because in real life, you can't control everything.
Right.
So the dice kind of are that aspect of how D&D is kind of like real life. That sometimes things are just up to chance.
Yeah. But there are also options for like pre-written stories that
Yes.
the dungeon master can read from, right?
Yeah,
Like, they don't
yeah.
always have to, like, write the whole thing themselves.
Right. Yeah. So there are like pre-made campaigns, and also like pre-made one-shots that either like D&D, the company, makes, or like people will come up with. And then there's also the dungeon master can make up their own campaign if they want to. That definitely takes a lot of time and energy to create something like that. They call it homebrewing. But I like to do homebrew because I can really tailor the game to my players.
Yeah.
Okay, the origins of D&D is very interesting, like the background of it. So, basics. D&D is a fantasy tabletop role-playing game, TTRPG, created and designed by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson in the 70s, early 70s. So, I found an interesting little like blurb about the creator of D&D, Gary Gygax. He's from Wisconsin, and there's a thing called the Wisconsin 101 project where it's just like the history of Wisconsin. So they had this little blurb about him. Gary is from Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. He fell in love with a board game called War Games, which is basically like a role play. It's not even a role play game. They create these like battle maps of actual battles in history, and then they play them out.
Oh.
But instead of playing them out like how it actually happened, they get to make choices of how they would have done the battle, basically.
Interesting.
So I remember as a kid, I think like someone in my family was into War Game and would do Civil War battle reenactments like on a little table. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember who it was in my family that was doing this, but whoever it was, they were like reenacting the actual battle and how it went. The actual game part of War Game is where you get to like have your army and you get to pick and choose like what moves
happens
you make.
Yeah.
But it's all the initial setup is based on an actual battle, which is kind of interesting, kind of nerdy, but kind of interesting. So Gygax, I think that's how you say his name. I'm not sure. He really liked War Games, but he felt like it was kind of a flawed game and got kind of boring. So he decided to create a new version, where instead of using the 6-sided die to control like how many of your army can move and blah blah blah, he used like a bag of poker chips numbered 1 through 20, and then you just pull it out and that would tell you like the likelihood that you succeed. And then he discovered a 20-sided die that he could buy from like a school supply catalog, and so that's where the D20 came from. It's from that.
So were they, I guess they were like using it for math or something?
I think they were using it to teach math. Like you roll a set of dice and then add them up, which is also an element of D&D.
Yeah.
Right? It's my probably least favorite part of D&D is adding the dice, but that's okay. So he started Gen Con. If anyone's into gaming and board gaming, they know what Gen Con is. So this guy, Gary Gygax, started the first Gen Con. In 1968, only 20 people came. And now every year it's something that draws over like 60,000 people.
Wow.
It's like a big deal. They announce like the new games of the year and the game awards of whoever did a good job with their gaming.
And it's all board games and table games, not
I
video
think
games.
so. And video games
Okay.
too. So from what I remember, I watched Gen Con this year. I think there's sections. Kind of like the Grammys. There's like, you could get nominated for like best female artist or whatever. They have stuff like that for different games. But he started the first one. Only 20 people came, which I think is kind of funny because it's a huge thing now. But this is where he met Dave Arneson, who's the other co-creator of D&D. So they started playing his new version of War Game, and kind of like developing and changing it as they played it with other people. And so they got people to play it with them from Gen Con. And so they would get people to play it there, and they would be like, hey, if you want to play more, you should come play with us at my house on Tuesday nights or whatever. So they kind of like drew people in to play it, and that's how they were able to test the game to see if people would like it, if they thought it was boring. So they coerced people into playing this game with them.
They invited them. They came of their own free will.
And people really liked it. And so they came up with a game that they called Chainmail. So this is kind of like War Game, but instead it incorporates magic. And it has more rules. It had almost 20 pages of rules, which now this is the player's handbook.
Yikes.
This isn't even all the rules. This is just the player's book. So it's this now, if not bigger. So they have made this new game, Chainmail. They sold about 100 games a month for when they first released it, and people really, really liked it. But they did get a lot of pushback from people who were like War Game hardcore. And they were saying that they didn't like the magic. They didn't like the fictional fantasy element of it. They thought it was stupid, basically. But they had a lot of people who were like, that's what I like about it. And then they changed it more and started incorporating more role play into it, where people were taking on different characters in their like little group that they had. So we're getting closer and closer to the actual D&D that we play now. So they tried to get the game published by the War Game publisher, and they said no. So Gygax and a friend of his just created their own company and published their own game in 1973 called Tactical Studies Rules. Such a boring name.
Yeah, that sounds like school.
Yeah, it sounds like a war game name, but that's what they called it. So they printed 1,000 copies of Dungeons and Dragons rulebook. And it came with like little mini figures with it. So they ran the company out of his basement in Wisconsin, and it was all word of mouth because it's the 70s. They couldn't pay for advertising or anything. So it's just like, hey, I know this guy and he has this game in his basement and it's fun. That's where it got started. But within less than a year, they had sold out all 1,000 books that they had printed. So the game just started to like really take off and become D&D. And since D&D came out, there's been several like revisions and additions to the actual D&D playbook. And I think now we're on the 5th edition revised. So it's like the 5th edition with some extra stuff. It's kind of like the DSM-5 where there's like DSM-5T or R or whatever we're on now. It's kind of like that. Gygax eventually didn't like how they were changing the game of D&D in the 80s. And so he sold his shares in 1985, I think, to Arneson, the guy that he came up with the game with, and just was eventually kind of out of the game at that point. Yeah, he missed out on some
he did
big time monies by doing that. And I think he died in the early 2000s, which was kind of when the D&D revival came back.
Okay.
Was the early 2000s. So the early success of D&D led to the creation of other types of game systems, of tabletop roleplay games. But D&D has always been like the number one. Everyone has heard of D&D at this point. In 2004, D&D was the best-known, best-selling role-playing game in the U.S. And more than $1 billion US in book and equipment sales worldwide in the year 2004. In 2017, it had the most number of players in its history, 12 million to 15 million in North America alone. I don't know how they figured out how many people play D&D.
Right, because your group can be however big.
Yeah. And it's not like you have to register to play.
Right.
You know, like, so long as someone's got the basic books or, like, knows how, then you can play. So I imagine it's way more than 15 million.
It has to be.
Like, I think it's most people at this point. The game has also been supplemented by pre-made adventures, like we talked about, as well as commercial campaign settings. So, like, I think there's one that's like My Little Pony campaign. There is a Stranger Things one that got really big. I think a lot of people still play that one. I've seen campaigns made that are like based in like literally the Lord of the Rings world. There's some that are based in like Greece. I've seen one, the Greece the movie.
Oh.
Not ancient Greece, Greece the movie with like John Travolta. That was the setting for their D&D campaign.
Cool.
And then there's a actual play show. So actual play is where you watch other people play D&D. But there's an actual play show, Dimension 20, called Fantasy High that I absolutely adore. It's what really, really got me into D&D. But its setting is like in a fantasy, like John Hughes high school movie, but they're all like fantasy characters, and it's so good. It's so freaking good. Like the D&D has just absolutely blown up since the 70s. And I want to go on a brief tangent about D&D and its ties to J.R.R. Tolkien.
Okay.
Because there's like a lot of speculation that that's where they came up with a lot of the stuff, and you could definitely argue that. But a lot of people also say that like that's all they had to go off of for a fantasy world in the 70s was like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
There wasn't really a whole lot else.
Okay.
Interesting. But the the Tolkien company or whatever didn't like it. So the importance of Tolkien's works as an influence in D&D is controversial. The presence in the game includes halflings, which are like hobbits, elves, dwarves, orcs, rangers, and like all kinds of other things that are like almost directly pulled from Lord of the Rings. So the resemblance was even closer before a threat of copyright action from Tolkien Enterprises, which forced the D&D people to change the names from Hobbit to Halfling, from Ent to Treant, and Balrog to Balor. Those are just some examples. They also made them do other stuff. So they basically told them, you can't use those names because those are Tolkien.
Did he invent them? Like, did he make up hobbits?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tolkien came up with like Hobbit, Hobbit the word, and like hobbits. There's no way to say that he came up with like dwarves or elves, because that's something from like ancient folklore.
Right.
But the things that he originally came up with, they told him, no, you can't do that. The D&D.
Okay.
Like, you can't use those names. So it's just funny that they changed the names by just like adding a couple letters or taking a couple letters
They did
away.
like the New York Times like connections version.
Right. Like, is this the Tolkien or is this the D&D creature?
Is this Tolkien, but we added A-N-T at the end.
Yes. Basically, yeah. So Gary Gygax tried to play down like how much Tolkien's world influenced him in creating D&D, but he did acknowledge that it had an impact on him. D&D has received some negative publicity in other areas, so some more controversy. In particular, from Christian groups for alleged promotion of such practices as devil worship, witchcraft, suicide, and murder. And also because there were naked breast presents on the minifigures of female humanoid creatures, like the bird people, the harpies.
Okay.
Where they're like half bird, half woman.
Okay.
They had just like boobs on them, and people were like, you can't do that in a game.
Nobody's making you buy it, so.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no one's making you play here, and you calm down. But these controversies were coming up when D&D started taking off in the like late 70s, early 80s during the Satanic Panic. And it led the TSR, the D&D people, to kind of change their artwork and change some of the like rules a little bit when they released the second edition. So they changed devils to demons, which I'm like,
same thing.
no. I mean, I guess technically in the Bible, they are different things, but whatever.
Okay.
Like, they're still from hell. So I don't think I think they're still going to be mad about it, but whatever. Moral panic over the game led to problems for fans of D&D who started to feel ostracized, that they were getting unfair treatment, and false association with the occult and Satanism. So people were kind of, not that they were playing less, they just weren't talking about it as much.
Yeah.
Because of fear of how the other people would judge them for playing D&D. Interesting, another tangent within a tangent. The controversy was also benefiting D&D by invoking something called the Streisand effect, which is basically where it's an unintended consequence where you're trying to like suppress something or hide something, but then because you're doing that, it's all secret. Everyone wants to know what it is.
Right.
Which I thought that was funny. So it kind of backfired. So some gameplay basics. We kind of talked about general basics, but D&D is different from wargaming because it allows the players to create their own individual character instead of like having a whole army. Typical D&D game consists of an adventure, which is roughly like an overarching quest or story, something they're trying to achieve, and then it's got mini quests or side quests sprinkled in. The DM can create their own adventure or use a pre-made adventure. DMs make their own fictional, or they can make their own fictional worlds, and that's usually how most people do D&D nowadays, is they kind of just make their own things up. There is combat in D&D, but it's not played out the same as Wargame. So in D&D, it's more of like, I want to stab this person. I'm going to roll to see if I'm successful. And then if I am, I roll to see how much damage I do. I guess in Wargame, it wasn't quite like that. It was like you move your army and then you roll to see how successful they were in that. And then if they weren't, they die.
Oh.
So it was more of like rolling to see how many of your army died than how much damage you did.
Okay.
From what I understand, I could be wrong. The Wargames rules were really confusing. I gave up.
That's fair.
By the time 1997 came around, which is when the game really took off, combat was mostly just resolved verbally. So people weren't using the miniatures as much anymore. They were just talking out loud or like, what's it called? Theater of the mind kind of thing. So there is an article that I found called Roll for Insight, Understanding How the Experience of Playing Dungeons & Dragons Impacts the Mental Health of an Average Player. That gives a pretty good, like, quick summary of D&D and how roleplay games work. Roleplay games exist at the intersection of 4 different phenomena: taking on roles, play, games, and media culture. At their core, RPGs build from a fundamental form of play or make-believe and social identity or roles, which gives the game its structure. In D&D, this is the dungeon master, or the person who facilitates the roles. The role of the player is to control their own individual character. Each player is invited to create a unique character and assign them a class, alignment, etc., and players are encouraged to write a backstory and roll dice for their strengths and weaknesses. That's it. So, just wanted to talk about like how characters are created in D&D, because that's what I use most often in therapy, is character creation. So, in D&D, you can use a character sheet or you can use a website to help you build your character, but there's some like consistent things that you have to choose. So you have to pick a name for your character, obviously. A class, which is kind of like the character's driving vocation in life. So there's a bunch of different ones: barbarian, bard, cleric, druid, fighter, monk, paladin, ranger, rogue, sorcerer, warlock, and wizard. And it's basically a mix of people who use a lot of magic to get by, people who use their brute strength to get by, people who use their smarts, and people who use some kind of like religion or follow some kind of ideal, and that's how they get their strength and their drive from. And I wish I could find it. I saw a funny TikTok where a girl was like talking about, this is the mental illness you have if this is the type of D&D character you play. And I like to play clerics a lot and druids, and they're both in different ways, but they're both like the healers of the group. They help everybody. And she called it out and was like, you're a people pleaser and you want everyone to like you. And I was like, yeah, well, yeah. So it's just interesting to think about, like, in a therapy session or in a couple therapy sessions, working with someone to make, like, how would you make a D&D character that represented you? And thinking about, like, what kind of person are you? Are you someone who, like, charges ahead without thinking and is very impulsive, which would be like a barbarian maybe? Or are you someone who likes to sit back and think and do your research before you react, which would be like a wizard or a sorcerer or something. And then you also pick a background for your character. This is also kind of like the origins of your character, like where they come from. So they could be like a noble elf or something, where they're a high elf or whatever. They could be someone who's like an outsider. So those are like character trait things that you would assign to your character to give them more depth in your play. You pick an alignment, which is like chaotic good, neutral, lawful evil, all that little chart. You pick one of those. And that kind of helps you make decisions for your character if you're playing correctly. Some people will be like, yeah, my character's chaotic evil, but then they don't make chaotic evil choices.
Because they're not chaotic
evil. So when I have helped people make characters, I'm like, hey, don't pick the thing that is directly the opposite of you. Pick something, find out where you are on the chart, and then pick one of the squares that's near you, because that's going to be easier to role play, especially your first time. And then some people are like, I don't know what I want to be. And I'm like, well, most people are just neutral good. So start there. And then you can always change it later on. Your character may be like, I don't know, someone killed their father and now they're
they
chaotic.
Experienced a trauma and now they're evil.
Yeah. Which is like so true to life. You go through some kind of trauma and it changes your alignment.
It's true.
It's very relevant. Sometimes, depending on what kind of character you have to pick a faith or like a religion. And that's usually if you're a paladin, which is someone who fights for a religion. It's like a crusader, basically. And then cleric has to pick a faith that they follow. And they will like, a cleric is basically a healer, but there are some like gods they can follow that are evil, basically. And so they heal people, but like they're picky about who they heal and who they want to be helpful with. You pick your physical characteristic. What's your character look like? That's kind of dependent upon the species that you pick. And then background story is really important to figure out your character's motivations and what they're trying to do. And then the mathy part that I don't really like, but is very important, is ability scores. There's strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And basically, when you make a character, you roll the dice, and then you pick numbers, assign them to those different traits. And you have to think about, like, okay, if my character is like a sneaky little thief, I need to give them dexterity so they can be stealthy. Or if my character is just basically a human battering ram, they need a lot of strength and constitution so that they're strong and don't, like, get hurt all the time.
Don't you start out with, like, a little bit of something, like, depending on what class
you pick? Like when you're at level 1, there's like a base level of like what those traits would look like.
Okay.
Sometimes people will like start a campaign at a different level though, like at level 3 or 4, because sometimes level 1 is kind of boring because you can't do a whole lot at level 1 or you get hurt.
Okay.
Or die. So then you have to kind of like do a little math to figure out where you want stuff to be. And then if you get really into D&D, you got to look at like what areas is your character proficient in. And then that gives you a bonus to like your dexterity or whatever you're trying to do. And that looks different depending on if you're playing like a classic D&D campaign or if you're doing something that's like fantasy steampunk. That might look different because there's not as much magic, but there's more like mechanical stuff you got to do. So it'll change depending on the campaign. But the basic ones are strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And it's... I did a campaign with my very close friend, and he picked a character that was a bard and had a high charisma, but he himself was like a little socially anxious at the table when we played. And so like it would come to like a point in the story where like a bard type character would kind of like take the lead and like talk us into whatever we're doing. And he would be like, I don't know how to do this or what to say. And so then the DM would be like, you're going to have to roll with disadvantage because you don't know what you're doing, even though your character like has a high charisma score.
Oh.
So disadvantage, he has to roll 2 dice and take the lower number. And then he has to go with that.
Interesting.
So that was interesting because the DM was like, you can make this character as charismatic as you want, but you're playing that character. So if you're having a little bit of a hard time, I'm going to give your character a hard time. So I kind of liked that because, you know, someone might be like, if we were doing this for a therapy session, they might just make literally a human battering ram character where they're just super, super, super strong and no one can knock them over. And it's like, well, plot wise, that's super boring. And so I'm going to make it kind of harder for you to do that. And that gets at people, getting them to think more critically and kind of plan ahead a little better, which is some good like mental juggling exercises that are good for people, especially kids.
Right.
So yeah, building a character I think is the most fun, one of the most fun parts of starting D&D, and is also complicated at the same time. There's a lot you have to take into consideration. So what are some influence of D&D on the real world? There's a lot of famous people that play D&D. A lot of people. I have a huge list, but some notable people. Stephen Colbert talks about it all the time. We're not surprised. He's a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. Robin Williams played D&D. Vin Diesel, Drew Barrymore, Terry Crews, Dame Judi Dench. NBA player Tim Duncan plays D&D. There's some expected people like Stephen King would play it. Steven Spielberg played D&D, and for the movie E.T., the opening scene is the kids playing D&D. He taught them how to play before they did the movie. He did like a little one shot with them before they shot the movie, which I think was kind of cool. Aubrey Plaza has played D&D. Pendleton Ward, the guy who created Adventure Time, played D&D, and I think that's very apparent in that show. Gerard Way, Rainn Wilson from The Office. There's a Weezer song called In the Garage, where in the song he's talking about like being surrounded by his like D&D figurines and his dice and like his posters and stuff. And that song is about a kid who feels ostracized at school. And so he seeks solace in his garage with like his D&D friends and buddies. And I thought that was cool. And then, yeah, My Chemical Romance, they have D&D in their music video for I'm Not Okay. It's like right in the very beginning. I talked about E.T., it's in so many movies and shows and books. Disney movie Onward. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen it, but I've saw the trailers.
Yeah, it's very, very cute. But that whole movie takes, like, their characters are all inspired by D&D creatures and monsters and stuff like that. There's the TV show Community, has a infamous couple of episodes.
I love those episodes.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sad that they've removed the episode where Chang is playing he's playing a type of elf called a drow that is purple, very, very dark purple, and they removed the episode for like blackface concerns and stuff like that. But it's like, I don't know, if you know D&D, you know that those types of elves are purple. But
did he have to dress?
He didn't have to dress up. Did he
have to paint himself?
No, he didn't.
They did because it's Community, and that's what they do. But
they like to push the envelope on things and maybe went a little too far. Yeah. It's played on the show Freaks and Geeks. There's an episode of that 70s show where they play and Alice Cooper plays. I don't know if you know who Alice Cooper is, but that's funny. It's on The Simpsons multiple times. Buffy, Stranger Things, duh. That's a pretty one.
I feel like that was like what when you said 2017, I was like, is that the same year Stranger Things came out?
I think the like Stranger Things campaign that D&D made came out before the season where they're playing it in high school. So they're playing it with what's that guy's name? Eddie? Do you know what I'm talking about? In the like last season, I think. He's like the older guy.
I only saw the first 2 seasons.
Oh, okay. I mean, they play D&D throughout every season.
Yeah.
But they released this campaign before this character Eddie was a part of the show, and people in the last season that Eddie was in, people like really loved him, and he was kind of like that like loner teen high school like poor kid, likes rock heavy music or whatever, and he's a freak. But he was running the D&D club for the high school, and it was their first year of high school, so they're like kind of scared of him at first, but he turns out to be like their big brother, essentially.
That's nice.
Yeah, so good stuff. There's like 10 D&D movies or something like that. Most recent one came out in 2023. There's just a lot. It's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. And then again, we've got some controversies though, with the satanic panic, and there's some murder and some death by suicide situations that were blamed on D&D.
Interesting.
Yeah. So a famous one was, if you don't like murder and stuff, stop listening. Famous situation is Chris Pritchard. He murdered his stepfather. Well, he and his 2 or 3 buddies murdered his stepfather. But they played D&D, and so the detective had this like judgment and assumption that like that was satanic and occult,
right?
And that's why they killed him.
Yeah.
So then that just spun out of control, and they made a movie and a mini series about the case where they like highlight D&D as like the reason that they murdered his stepfather.
So that was a prevailing theory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And this was, let me see, the 90s. 1990 was when he was convicted. And the movies came out like a couple years later, I think. But it was like, the movies were saying that they did it because of D&D. And we now know that they were all mentally ill.
Right.
In different ways. But the one guy that was more violent would do drugs, and they would do live action role play of their characters, which is totally fine. But they were doing it with real weapons, and they were doing it in this like underground like tunnel system underneath the university, and it was super, super dangerous.
Yeah.
And they were like hurting each other, and that's not D&D. They were taking it way too far. And they would like get high and then act out like they were their characters. Right. And they would
I think we could probably blame the drugs on that one.
We're going to blame the drugs. We're going to blame the drugs and lack of access to mental health services on that. Hardcore. Yeah. And this was in the 90s, but it was definitely like that detective had that assumption because of the satanic panic that was happening in the 80s. So the satanic panic is a fascinating thing. I could do a whole episode on, honestly. Right? It's crazy. But the origins of the satanic panic are attributed to this whack psychiatrist who wrote a book called Remembering Melissa. I think that's her name. Michelle Remembers is the book. And he used these like unethical practices of therapy to try and drag out of her these like hidden memories that weren't real, and got her to say these crazy things on tape about how she was part of satanic rituals as a 5-year-old. And he turned it into a book and then married her. So we're breaking all the ethics here.
Yeah.
All the HIPAA. Was HIPAA a thing in the 80s? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
And I'm going to name him because garbage person, Lawrence Pazder. I don't blame Michelle at all, the woman he married. It seemed like she had a lot of things going on, and he just took advantage of her. But he wrote this book that was just like a year-long expose on their sessions where he would record her, and he would do all these like he wasn't certified in hypnosis, and he was doing that on her, and like using these sick mind tactics to get her to say things that weren't true, basically. And when the book came out, it was presented as fact, as like a biography or autobiography, basically. Like, here's a real life account of this satanic stuff, and like him pulling it out of her with these like uncredited methods. And so because it was published and marketed as being factual, it just like set people off like crazy. Yeah. People were like, there were people who were confessing to things that never happened, or like other psychiatrists and therapists using these same methods to pull information from people that wasn't true. And there were like all kind, like 12,000 uncorroborated accounts of some satanic ritual, blah, blah, blah happening. But it's not, none of it was true. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's messed up. So there's a lot of different like famous cases of murder, of suicide, all kinds of things that people would then be like, I did it because I played D&D. So there were people committing crimes and then saying, I did it because I played D&D and now I worship Satan. But that's not how that works.
Right.
Like,
and they were like using methods that were not safe to get that information from them.
Yeah. Like this psychiatrist, this Lawrence Pazder guy. Oh man, I didn't write it down. He was using hypnosis without being trained or certified in it. He was using like gaslighting kind of things almost to convince her that stuff happened to her, and like trying to convince her that these like images that she was seeing in her head were real memories when they were most likely like intrusive thoughts kind of things.
Yeah.
And she was like very depressed. And I read something where someone was like, she might have been schizophrenic maybe and was just like seeing stuff, but he took advantage of it and just like,
well, and the fact that he was like, ooh, I could make money from this lady.
Yeah. And then married her.
And then I forgot.
Married his patient. Okay. That's like a big no, number one rule in being a mental health or a doctor. You don't marry your patients. You don't do that. And I don't know if he like continued treating her after they got together, but he probably did. He probably did.
He's one of those guys that takes his prescription pad home with him.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's the 80s, 100%. He was selling. Yeah. We can assume that. Recovered memory therapy is what he was doing.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So this is like
recovered memory, aka made up memories that I told you were true.
Yes. Yep. And that's what I was like. It was like gaslighting her into thinking memories were real when they were not. Recovered memory therapy.
It is gaslighting. It's like, remember when you said that you did that? Remember?
Yeah.
You told me.
Yeah. And then you can convince someone that they've been abducted by aliens or that they committed a crime when they really didn't. But it's because the therapist, psychiatrist that they're talking to is messing with their mind because they know how. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's what he was doing to her. And he was like, RMT was supposedly a way to like draw out traumatic memories so that you can address them.
No.
But they're not memories. They're not real.
You can't tell them what the memory is because you weren't there.
Right. Be like, you were part of a satanic ritual when you were 5 years old. How do you feel about it? What? I don't remember that.
Well,
but
it's very traumatic for you. That's why you can't remember.
Yeah, it's a repressed memory.
Oh, man.
Wow. So that's what he did. Yeah, so they're a famous case of someone where they tried to attribute D&D as why they did things. James Dallas Egbert III. He disappeared from his dorm room at his university. Private investigator was hired to try and find him. This is another detective who learned that he was playing D&D and said, this is why he disappeared. In truth, he was suffering from depression and drug addiction, and he had gone into hiding during an episode under the university. So this is kind of like those 3 guys earlier I was talking about.
Why are there all these tunnels under universities?
So in the north, they have tunnels so that when it snows, they can like get to buildings.
Oh.
So there's that. I don't know if that's what's happening.
Okay.
But I learned that recently, that there are some places in like cities up north where they make like tunnel systems so you could walk from one building to another underground because the snow and stuff gets so bad. I don't know if that's what's happening, like but
hand dug tunnels.
When I read it, I was picturing like the sewers where the Teenage Ninja Turtles live. Yeah. That's what I was imagining.
Yeah. He's like going in with a lantern.
They're basically like hanging out and getting lost in these like tunnels and basements that are under these buildings.
Okay.
But so they found him in a steam tunnel, and then he was self-harming in the steam tunnel and then later died. But they turned this story with the D&D element into a book, and then a movie called Mazes and Monsters.
Oh, no.
And the movie it stars Tom Hanks.
Wow.
Which I'm kind of like surprised that he would do a movie like that.
Right. I've never heard of this movie.
Yeah. I mean, probably for good reason. 1982. So he was pretty young.
Yeah.
But like, you know, again, they're taking this story, this awful thing that happened to someone where they just needed more mental health support. They were like D&D, Satanism, blow it up. And then they turned it into a media thing. Which makes me sick.
Spreading lies about this guy who can't defend himself because he's dead.
Right. And they're just contributing to the panic. That's not even real. It's not even real. Another similar thing happened in 1982 with a student named Irving Lee Pulling. He shot himself. His mom believed that he died because it was from him playing D&D, and she went and created this like organization that was anti-D&D. It was called Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, so that the acronym was BAD.
Right, because MAD is already taken.
Yeah. So it's Bothered. It's not Mothers Against, it's Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons.
It's such like a tame word too. Like, I'm just bothered by
Bothered. Wow.
It's like I'm slightly annoyed about this.
I'm peeved. But Pulling's mother, she made this organization in 1983, and they went around talking to people about why D&D is bad and don't do it. Kind of like the DARE program against drugs.
Or Pool in the Music Man.
Yeah. Right here in the...
Where do they live? River City.
We got trouble with a capital T. That's what's happening. But it's D&D and like killing and stuff. Yeah. So don't do that.
A little less Satan in the Music Man.
I mean, Satanic Panic apparently started back in River City in the 1880s. I don't know. But they launched... The BAD, B-A-D-D, launched an intensive media campaign through conservative Christian outlets as well as mainstream media, including an appearance on 60 Minutes. And there was one where she sat, I think it was her or someone from the organization, was like sat in opposition to Gary Gygax, the guy who came up with D&D.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't find it anywhere. I really wanted to look at it and like watch it. But they did some kind of interview together to talk about D&D. An author, Michael Stackpole, I don't know what he writes, but he was criticizing Patricia Pulling, the mom, and her organization BAD with a double D. In the 90s, he published this thing called the Pulling Report on her name, where he documented all of the errors that they made and all the like infactual evidence.
Nice.
So he was like, guess what? You're fucking wrong.
And they named it after her.
Listed out
love
everything
that.
they did wrong. And I didn't look up what kind of author he is, but I would imagine he's probably like a fantasy author if he's pro D&D. But
Maybe, yeah.
I might just be assuming. And he also accused her of misrepresenting herself as being an expert on the game because she had never played before, you know. So he was like, you can't be an expert in something that you don't do.
Right.
That's not how
But
that
there's
works.
monsters in it.
Right.
It's dragons.
And creatures with boobies.
Yeah.
And but now the public perception has totally changed. If anyone has a negative view of D&D, it's more because of like it's still seen as like nerdy. But we don't really have as much of a satanic association with D&D as we used to, but it's definitely still there.
Yeah.
I remember I grew up in a very small town where like I don't think I ever heard of D&D growing up. People made fun of me for reading The Hobbit when I was a kid.
Right.
So I like if I was introduced to D&D, I probably would be like, I don't want to get bullied more. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
They already know I read The Hobbit. But when I went to college, which was like the first time I lived somewhere where there were more than like 500 people in my class, that's when I first was introduced to D&D, and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. This is like, it got all of my like theater nerd plus fantasy nerd stuff together. And I was like, yes, please. But I know a lot of people have either like grown up similarly to me where either there was just no one who ever played D&D around you, or it was like you got bullied for it. Or there's people who grew up where like your family played D&D.
Yeah.
And so like you grew up that way, or you played something similar and that got you into D&D. But it's just interesting that like even when I was a kid, it was still kind of like, like, don't do it.
Yeah.
Being like bullied for it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. I brought some props. I showed these books earlier. This is the monster manual. All the monsters. This is the player's handbook. And then this is an example of like a pre-made adventure, Princes of the Apocalypse.
Oh, it's so big.
It is. It's mostly, I love these because of the art.
Yeah.
Let me see. But these pre-made ones have like the maps and everything in them. And then they'll have like, these are different encounters that they have to work through and like what they do. So there's traps. There's the characters that they fight. Ooh, that's creepy. He's fighting a brain.
Ooh.
Gross. But yeah, so this is just one of the pre-made adventures that you can do. I haven't played this one. I think this is my husband's, yeah. So he must have played this one. But there's a lot that you can do. One of the more famous ones by D&D is I can't remember what it's called, but it's vampires.
Okay.
There's a bad vampire. Strahd is his name.
Okay.
Apparently he's very attractive. People are into that. I mean, there's definitely more books. These are just the lighter books that I have.
The lighter ones.
The other ones I have, I have other like role play TTRPG game books that are smaller, but all the other D&D stuff we have is really big.
Yeah.
This is a character sheet that I was talking about. You probably saw this when you did your one shot.
Yep.
This is one from my very first character. She was level 3. But yeah, she was a rogue tiefling. They're the people with horns.
Okay.
And yeah, she had her highest score is dexterity, and her lowest score is strength and charisma. So not a talker, not very strong, but very sneaky. And I think I gave her a higher like smarts roll as well, or score. And then another fun thing about D&D is collecting dice.
Yes. Oh, they're so pretty.
Right. I get a new set of dice for every new character, and I buy the set so that it matches my character.
Oh, cute.
So the green ones, not that one. This one was for the character I just showed you, Journey, because she was like a magic character. And then this ones with the flowers in it are for a character I had that was a druid. And so she was a stoner and would just like look for flowers constantly and get lost and stuff like that.
Cool.
So that's why she has flowers.
Aw.
Yeah.
The wedding I went to this weekend, all of their centerpieces were flower vases, and they put dice in the water.
That's cute.
They like to play. I mean, they're just board game and tabletop game people, but D&D is one of the things that they play.
That's
so they
a cute idea.
Like all the dice.
I had bought giant D20 for decorations and totally forgot them for our wedding. But they were like giant foam ones so that people could like throw them around and stuff. And I wanted to show you this because it's a D20. If you roll a 1, it's fuck me. And if you roll a 20, it's fuck you. That's one of my favorite D20s that I have.
That's cool.
And then these are just the ones that I play with the most, but I have like a big bag of dice at home.
Yeah. Why is there a bell in there?
Oh, so my character has this spell that she does called Toll the Dead, and it's you ring a bell and you do necromantic damage.
Okay.
Right? So my cat hates these on her collar, and she'll try and rip them off. So I just take them off every time she gets a new collar. But I started collecting them, and then one day when we're playing, I just like pulled a like thing of cat spells out of my bag, and I was like, I'm gonna toll the dead with cat bells. So that's why that's in there. I don't have like, it was a huge thing of just like these little cat bells that I strung together.
That's cool.
It was so funny. But yeah, I could talk all day about D&D, you guys.
Yeah.
I really could. I'm excited. This next part, I'm going to talk about the research, and I'm going to talk about like potential applications for D&D and therapy, because I think people be interested of like what that would look like.
Yeah, I'm excited. I already love the idea of like what you can learn about somebody from the characters that they build.
Yeah, it's almost a personality test, I feel like. And that's why I like every time I've had a client who talks about D&D, I'm like, would you be interested in making a character sheet that's yourself? What would that look like? It's really fascinating.
Yeah, I love that.
So cool. But yeah.
Cool.
That's all I've got today.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing show and tell items.
I thought it'd be fun. I get to show off one of my hobbies.
Yeah. I love that. Yay. Well, I found a couple Dungeons and Dragons related Reddit stories for you.
I love this. There is a D&D podcast I love called Not Another D&D Podcast. And it's a great podcast. If you're interested in D&D, it's a good one to listen to kind of like get into it and understand. But they have episodes that they do for their Patreon called D&D Court, where people are like, here's this awful thing that happened in our session today. What do you think? And they make like a judgment about how it went, and like sometimes they're like, the DM should die, or or the character was wrong. Their character needs to die.
Yeah. I found there's a couple that are like that, and some of them are just like D&D's just like happens to be part of the
That's funny.
the setting.
Okay, I'm gonna do a ruling on some of these D&D things. Okay. What I think should have happened, but
okay. This was posted a year ago.
Cool.
I heard it on another podcast.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was funny. Okay. Am I the asshole for blowing up my husband because he counted his work on our D&D game as one of his chores?
Oh, okay.
I, 35 female, and my husband, 35 male, have been together for 10 years, blissfully happy, no notes. After COVID, we got into Dungeons and Dragons. We have a weekly game that runs from 3 to 4 hours with 3 other friends. 5 of us have been going on adventures for the past few years, meeting consistently over Zoom. I've been having a great time overall. My husband is the DM, which means he does a lot of work preparing the sessions. This includes coming up with the characters we are going to have conversations with, figuring out the battles we are going to fight, and so on. I really appreciate his work. On the other hand, I've been feeling like I'm doing more chores in our partnership. I cook a lot, clean the kitchen, help with the laundry, do most of the driving. We tried splitting chores before. There was a period where he would fold laundry and do cleaning while I cooked, but it didn't last beyond a week or two. I normally don't particularly mind, but life has been especially shit lately due to health issues in the family, and I think it puts extra stress on us. So the other day, I cooked dinner. During dinner, he was giving me a sneak peek of the magical items he made for the blacksmith in the new town, and I guess I didn't look as excited, so he asked me why. I said, I'll be excited when you clean up the kitchen after we're done eating. This started a major argument, and we really don't have many of those, so it was a bit intense, about how I don't appreciate his work on this campaign. I countered, saying he's free to work on his hobbies as much as he wants, but it's not the same thing as helping me out with the chores. To this, he countered that his work on his D&D campaign counts as a chore, just like cooking and cleaning. He said he provides space for hanging out with our friends every week. In a way, he's organizing and scheduling our social life, and it takes a lot of work. I thought this was absolutely bonkers perspective. This is where things escalated because I was sort of befuddled, I still am, and he got really hurt. He did say the fact that you're asking this shows you don't understand how much work I put into this campaign. For the record, I did run a leg of the campaign as the DM for a few weeks, and it was a lot of work. But it was a hobby, at least to me. It was a fun thing I elected to do, not something I needed to do like a chore. He pointed out that I don't need to cook either. We can afford to eat out every night and hire a cleaning service for sorting out the apartment. He's not wrong. We can't afford it, but it still felt weird. I eventually let it go, but I feel like I'm going to need to sort some sort of resolution to this because I can feel the resentment bubbling in my chest. I don't want to win an argument. I'm not looking for vindication, but can someone give me an insight into this conflict? Am I wrong? Am I being the asshole here?
Okay. Yeah. So, I get what he's saying with like it does take a lot of work as a DM to put everything together. It takes a lot of work. Especially if it's not a pre-made thing and you're doing it yourself.
Right.
Like you're not only writing like a plot, you're writing subplots in case they make different decisions, and you're coming up with NPC characters. You're coming up with like stuff they can buy if they happen to go to this shop or whatever. So it is a lot of like thinking ahead and planning and all that kind of stuff. And then it sounds like he's doing the scheduling too, which is always like a hassle. So in a sense, he's basically like planning a party every week or every time they do their D&D stuff.
Right.
So that's a lot. So I get what he's saying. The like mental load is a lot.
Sure.
But at the same time, it sounds like she has been taking over like the chores of the house for a while, and he's gotten used to that.
Yeah.
And so now when she's like, I would like for him to do more chores to help us out because we're stressed. It sounds like maybe she didn't say it like that. And instead it's like one of those unsaid things that she hasn't communicated yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like the big
Or
issue
she
that
said
I've
something
noticed.
from a point of she was escalated and maybe said it in a way that she wouldn't have if she was feeling calmer.
Yes, yeah. Like the argument that they had, they probably should have like, let's take a break and come back to this later because we're taking it in all kinds of directions we don't need to go.
Right.
But yeah, as with most of these Am I the Asshole things, it sounds like a huge communication issue. That's what I think.
Yeah. And I understand that like she's making a distinction between a hobby and chores, and he's saying, well, this is something that we do every week, so it's something we have to do. Like people are expecting us to have this
Like
ready
hosting
for them
people,
every week.
Yeah.
Maybe they need to host every other week.
Yeah, every week is a lot. That's too much.
And then he'll have more time. But yeah, you kind of have to balance out. If you want to do something, you have to balance it with all the other stuff you have to do.
And to me, it sounds like that she's been kind of taking over the house chores for a while. And that's been the norm for a long time. And so he's just not used to doing them. And then even when he did fold laundry while she cooked or whatever, like, that didn't last very long. So she needs to communicate to him that, like, hey, I have been okay with doing all of this, but now it's taking a toll on me and we need to rearrange how this works.
Yeah.
But instead it turned into a miscommunication, non-communication, and they got their feelings hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, be nice to your DMs, everybody. They might, like, torture your character and stuff, but they do so much work to make it fun.
Okay, this one is from r/D&D horror stories.
Oh, yikes.
And it was posted 10 months ago. Am I the asshole for wanting to quit a campaign early after an annoying actually guy ruined my big twist? I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet. Edit. I did not, in fact, keep it short and sweet.
I was gonna say, that's gonna be hard to do.
I'd worked heavily with the DM, a close friend of mine, to craft a challenging rogue who actually used to work for the big bad of our campaign and was now on a quest for revenge. But all of that was meant to be a twist, as the other players thought I was just a quiet human rogue with a subclass in being a ranger. I wanted a pet birdie. Thank you for the details.
You get a bird. You get a pet if you're a ranger.
Okay.
Like a little guy that follows you around.
Okay. This is until I made the mistake or little hint, because the plan was eventually figure it out through mistakes I make in my backstory or a reaction to seeing my boss again, where I just try to kill him no matter the plan we make. Okay. Of saying something like, I actually practiced a little bit of magic in my long life. I only know a spell that can change my form for a minute, as an option to sneak past a guard, and a bit of role-playing, hey, he can't typically do that, something fishy's going on.
Okay, people are just catching on to inconsistencies.
Right.
Okay.
But he was planting those.
Okay,
Sounds like.
So he was purposefully planting some inconsistencies. So he wanted them to figure it out eventually.
Right. He wanted it to be like, oh, it's a twist, but like if you think about it, the seeds were planted.
Yeah, okay.
Suddenly, this one guy I'd never met before, but apparently the most diehard D&D encyclopedia at their table. And then he has this big long parentheses that I don't think we need.
That's fine.
He shouts out something like, that's not on your character sheet and you can't use magic, you're already multi-classing. And the DM directed him to address that in-game, but he just wouldn't let up. I did make the mistake of pushing when he finally took it to role-playing. Honestly, I just wanted them to brush it off and let me shapeshift once in a while. But then he started being a bit rude about how I didn't understand the rules enough to be at the table and I can't just do whatever I want. Eventually, I just let up, and I think he was trying to say kind of angrily. Okay. But those are not those letters.
Interesting.
Something happened with your brain there.
Yep.
I think he was trying to say, eventually I let up and kind of angrily said, fine, my character reveals much earlier than he wanted to that he's a changeling and his name is not blank. He got real quiet but didn't apologize, just said, okay, see, that makes sense now. Which got me so pissed off. Other people at the table played along and tried to make it an interesting scene, but we called the game off early because everyone was a bit high-strung. I don't want to keep playing that character anymore. He's fun and all without the twist, but that was a big moment I was waiting for, and now it's just ruined with no way of setting things back. I don't really want to make a new character and rejoin with that guy, but he's been a part of their table for like a year now and is the boyfriend of one of the players. My friend is telling me that things don't always go the way you want, and there will be more cool moments for my character if I come back and play, but I just don't want to anymore. Am I the asshole? Keep in mind, I'm still somewhat new to the game. Don't rip me apart if I am. I'll listen and concede. If I'm wrong, I just don't know.
Interesting. Okay. Just like when making a group for therapy, a therapy group, you have to take in consideration who all the people are and how they might interact together. So I think that's something that a lot of people, when they make D&D groups, that they just are looking for anyone to be in the group, right? Because it's kind of hard to organize a group of people who can meet at the same time for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Like, that's
adults.
hard.
Yeah.
So hard.
Yeah.
So you kind of are just like willing to let lots of people play just to fill your party in. But that can be a problem, like with what happened here, which is where someone is metagaming. So like they're not focused on like the story and the plot and their characters and how they would figure this out. That guy that was like, you can't do that, was thinking he's too rules heavy.
Yeah.
He's too much into this is how you play the game, without thinking about the exciting role play aspect of like, I know something's up, but I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. And part of that, I think, could be like the DM maybe should have done a little more to like mitigate that issue.
Yeah, because he knew about it.
Yeah, so the DM worked with the original posters there to make their character and to come up with all this stuff, which is great. You should do that. But it sounds to me, I think the DM should have like intervened a little more, maybe. Which it can be hard to like confront someone when you're playing D&D like that, especially if it's your friend, or even if it's someone you don't know very well, like he's the boyfriend of another player.
It sounds like the poster is new to this group.
Okay.
And there's 2 people in the group that are dating, and it's this guy that he doesn't like, but they've been there longer than this poster has.
I see. Okay, gotcha. So the original poster is the newer guy. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, but still though, I think the DM could have done more to like make that not as much of that guy metagaming so much. He could have done more to like get him off the trail maybe, or so like in D&D you can roll an insight check. So you roll a d20 for your insight, like what you're trying to figure out. It's basically like, can I find clues is what that would be. So I like maybe the DM could have been like, hey, you're upset because he's not playing by what you think his character is. Roll an insight for me real quick. Because it's like he's catching on. He's picking up clues.
Yeah.
And then based on the roll, it's like, how much will that character figure out what's going on?
Right.
Instead of letting the rules hard guy just sit and be like, you can't do that based on rules.
Yeah.
Because that's super annoying. I don't like when people do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, especially in a game that's so fluid like D&D.
Right,
like if it was like Monopoly, then sure, like don't cheat.
And
follow the rules.
There's definitely players in D&D who are like into that, like following the rules, and like the combat is what they're into. But I would say most people are into like the role playing stuff more than the like battle and rules stuff.
Yeah.
He needs to go play the, what's it called? War game.
Yeah.
The original.
Right. Yeah. Okay. You want to do one more?
Sure.
I didn't like how somebody answered this one, so.
Ooh, okay.
This is from Am I the Asshole Reddit from 2 months ago. Am I the asshole for how I spoke in my D&D session? This character in the group has a deadly illness, and she revealed that to us 2 sessions ago. So, like the last session, I commented, oh, if we get trapped or if we're going to die, I'm going to sacrifice your character so I can escape. I said that because of my character's alignment, which is evil neutral. So it'd be something he'd do. I honestly wouldn't have done that, and we were all joking around, or at least I believe so.
Okay.
This morning, she said she was leaving the group because of that comment and because we argued a lot about what we should do next. The argument was about who we should suspect and whether we should break into this church. Another person and I on the team said, yeah, we should, but the other 3 didn't want to because they were clerics or of good alignment. Most of the time, it felt like we were playing our characters. She says we were arguing for like 30 minutes, but it honestly didn't feel like that long, but maybe we were, though we would always make sure to move the story along. That was the original post, and then he added, An update, for more context, everyone was expecting to die because our DM warned us of a dangerous path ahead, and most of us were joking about dying. When I say sacrifice, I don't mean kill her. I was saying, like, I just had to outrun her to escape, and the reason I said that was because the mood felt like a joke situation. I would never say that in a serious tone. And then they have an update, but I want to read this comment first. The first comment on here is, you're the asshole. D&D is a collaborative game. You shouldn't be role-playing an antisocial evil character in a group full of good-aligned people. Your DM should have stepped in, and you should learn some basic social skills.
Damn.
And I was like, hold on.
Damn, Reddit.
Yeah.
People go hard on there sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't agree with that comment.
Okay.
So it sounds like they have a party of people with mixed alignments. It sounds like there's more than just one that's evilly aligned, and then some that are good. Like, that happens. Okay. They made the comment because they read the mood as more jokingly. Maybe sacrifice wasn't the best word to use.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have said it differently, or like been like, hey, if we're gonna have to outrun a bear, I'm gonna leave you behind.
Right.
You know, that would have been more of a joke. But that's what they said in the moment where they thought people were joking. That player who had their terminally ill character, I don't know what their situation is, but I feel like they could have maybe talked about it before they were like, I'm leaving the group.
Right.
Which, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did talk to the DM and was like, hey, I don't like how that went down. But then the DM can be like, okay, thanks for letting me know. Here's what we can do about it. It sounds more to me like she kind of sat and stewed in it and then was like, I don't want to play anymore.
Right. Or she took it personally and was like,
yeah,
something about the way you said that made me feel like you don't like me.
yeah. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, maybe she did take it personally. Yeah.
It stuck out to me that the commenter was saying you should learn social skills because we were talking about D&D in therapy, like
helps build
as
social
a way
skills.
to build
Yeah.
social skills. Like if you are in a group of people who are
Right.
new and you have to learn how to cooperate and get along and talk
Right,
to them.
right.
Like that's what it's for.
Yeah. That's a tricky situation where I would need to know more about what's going on. But it sounds like to me that, yeah, like who the person that had the sick character, the character with whatever illness, took it a little too personally what was going on. And yeah, I would want to hear from like everyone else that was in that session of like, how did you read the situation? If
Yes.
everyone read the situation as it was awkward and what they said was mean,
Right.
okay, then that's what happened. But if we have like some people that were like, oh, I thought we were just like kind of joking and then she took it too seriously, then maybe that's what's going on.
Well, you're in luck because there's an update.
Yay!
I spoke to everyone else in the group, and they all agreed that they understood that we were not taking anything seriously.
Okay.
It was a jokey tone, and that it was just the player's anxiety. Her words, not mine.
Okay.
So she
took it
was her own
personally.
anxiety. She
Yep.
took it personally, and it sounds like everything's good.
Okay. That's
Yay!
what it sounded like was going on to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. It would take a lot for me to just straight up quit a D&D campaign.
Yeah.
It would take a lot. And someone's making an offhand comment about my character like that, I don't think that would make me quit. But also, you know, countertransference happening between a player and their D&D character. That's a thing that happens. And you gotta practice that separation, which is another therapeutic thing that D&D can do for people.
Yep.
Helping you kind of compartmentalize a little bit.
Can I read you this one real quick?
Yeah.
And then we'll be done. Okay. Am I the asshole because I do not want to play D&D with an egotistical DM?
Dun, dun, dun.
So I have been playing D&D for about 2 to 3 years with this one group. We have kept on switching who is DM and many different campaigns. We have yet to finish one because we all keep having new ideas. However, I am mainly a guy who DMs with pre-written adventures because no one else in the group has played them, and I think many of the adventures are fun and interesting. One of the people who has been a DM for much longer than anyone will always be saying, my adventures are so much better than any pre-written adventure. That may seem minor, but it just rubs me the wrong way. Not to mention that I brought up wanting to run Tomb of Annihilation, and he didn't even know what it was. I explained to him with all the traps and trickery and everything, and once again he says, I can come up with a better trap dungeon than that. I do not know if he can or not make something better, but whether he does or doesn't, it still rubs me the wrong way. He doesn't know anything about these pre-written adventures. He doesn't know what the Curse of Strahd is, doesn't know Icewind Dale. He has never laid eyes on a pre-written story. I know this is a super small issue, but it really shows a lot of him as a person to me, and I can't imagine what he thinks when we're all playing. Side note, he has also overpowered DMPCs when he is a player. He loves the spotlight. So am I the asshole for not wanting to play with this guy for these issues?
It sounds like they don't like each other.
Yeah. It just doesn't.
It sounds like these two people outside of DM maybe don't get along to me. But also, it also sounds like the original poster is one of those like rules heavy people, and they like to follow the thing. And then the other guy is like a challenge. Styles. Yeah, they have very different styles, which isn't bad, but you have to be able to like communicate and compromise a little bit so that people can work together.
Well, and I feel like if you're playing a pre-written campaign, like, why do you need to comment like, I could write this better? Like, okay,
yeah, that's unnecessary.
You can do one yourself later. Like, we're playing this one now, but go ahead, make your own.
Yeah, like that's a weird thing to say in a session where someone else is the DM of like, this is what we're doing, and then to be like, basically, I don't like what you're doing.
Right.
That doesn't feel nice to hear. It's like, but this is what I like to do as the DM, is do these pre-made ones because I like them. Right.
And like, it's already all written out for me.
They're also like muddling like personal preference with fact a little bit, because they were saying something about like the pre-made games, he's never even heard of the Curse of Strahd or whatever and stuff like that. It's like
yeah, because he doesn't do those.
Yeah. Like, that doesn't mean he's a bad DM or he's bad at D&D because he doesn't know those things. I don't know those things super well. I know what they're called, and like the general thing of Curse of Strahd is that he's a big bad evil vampire and you have to kill him. That's all I know. But like, I'm still good at doing D&D because like I can play D&D with a group of people and like, get along.
Yeah. It sounds like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you like this band? Name 5 of their songs that weren't on the billboard.
Like 100%. That is exactly what's happening. You like D&D? Name 5 NPCs from the Curse of Strahd.
Right. It's like, okay, there's like a million different things that you could be into within D&D.
Yeah.
You could still be a fan and not know every little tiny detail about it.
Yeah. Because, I'm not into I've not really played very many pre-written ones. I've done one, I think. It was fun. But I really like homebrew stuff where I get to make it my own. Yeah. I think that's super creative, and that's just who I am. But that's not for everybody. And I know that, and I'm okay.
Yeah. And it's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine.
Yeah. What's DMPC?
Is it all together?
Yeah.
Because DM is Dungeon Master.
Right.
NPC is non-playable character. So as the DM, you do have to like do the voices and pretend to be the NPCs, right? Like in an interaction.
Okay.
So like if I was a DM and I had a character that was like, I want to go talk to the blacksmith, I have to pretend to be the blacksmith.
Right.
So maybe that's what they're referencing.
I don't know. It said he overpowered DMPCs when he's a player, he loves the spotlight.
Overpowered.
And then he said he has a DMPC that is higher level than us that leads the party around, and it's all very much combat focused with little to no story, and the DMPC just knows everything and is the main thing pushing it all forward.
I'm Googling it because I don't know.
Yeah.
DMPC.
A character which is a player character run by the DM. Oh,
okay,
so
that's
the
what I was saying.
DM is also playing a character. It's not an
Who
NPC.
travels with? Oh,
Yeah,
I
so he's a
see.
character and the DM.
I see. Okay, yeah.
But he makes himself like
a character
the leader, so he knows everything that's happening and he's playing it.
See, you can't do that if you're the DM. That's bad. If you're so the DMPC is like if the party is only 3 people, they need a 4th person to fill it out more.
Yeah.
The DM creates a playable character that tags along. But yeah, you cannot, if you're going to do that, you cannot make your DMPC more powerful than the other players because that's not fair.
Then you're just playing by yourself.
Yeah. Like if I were to do that, I would make my DMPC like 1 level lower than everyone else. And I would probably make them either a class that's similar to someone else so that they're like related or like something like that.
Yeah, and you would still be encouraging everybody else to make all the decisions because you know where the story is going.
Right.
Yeah. That would be annoying.
That would be super annoying.
It's like, why am I here?
So it sounds like those 2 people don't really like each other and don't really like how the other one plays D&D is what it sounds like. So
good luck.
Yeah, I mean, either figure out a way to be able to play together, play nice or don't play at all. Like,
yeah, that's
kind
basically what he was saying. He was like, I need to know if I'm overreacting or if I should find a new group to play with because I just can't stand this guy.
Yeah, he's got to figure that out on his own, man. Like, where is the line? When are you not having fun anymore? Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah.
When it's not fun, that's when you leave. You kill your character and go somewhere else.
Yep.
Or just take your character to another campaign. That's what I do.
Okay, yeah.
Just start somewhere else.
Especially if you worked hard on the character.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a character who bounced between... I took her to like 3 different campaigns. Because I was like, I really like her, and she's only level 4, so... I would like to play more so that she can get cool abilities and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was super fun because... I tend to be... So my first character was a very serious character, but now most of my characters have some kind of like goof about them where they're like a little silly. And I like doing that. Yeah. So I like joining people who have made like maybe a little more serious characters and being like, I'm going to be the goof. I'm going to be the silly little guy for your campaign.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right. Well, thanks for introducing us to D&D.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear more about it.
Yeah. Part 2, we'll talk about how it helps with mental health and then how it might look if you did it in a therapy session.
Yeah. So leave your comments about D&D, questions about D&D. Maybe we'll see them in time to respond to some for part 2.
Yeah. If you've got any questions or D&D horror stories that you want us to talk about next time I'm presenting, we can do that.
In 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then tune in next week for more Andrew Tate. And toxic
masculinity. Toxic masculinity, D&D. Toxic masculinity, D&D.
This is the nerdiest I've ever felt. We talked about D&D, Lord of the Rings. I mentioned New York Times connections. Yeah. And the Music Man.
That was my favorite, though. That was such a good... Because at first my brain was like, the fuck is that? And then I was like, oh, the Music Man.
Pool's dangerous, guys.
Pool is dangerous. Yep. Trouble.
Play the trombone instead.
Instead of letting your kids play pool, give them a flugelhorn or whatever you gave that kid.
And you know what? We should be giving kids musical instruments.
Oh, yeah.
The arts are dying.
The arts are dying and AI is not helping.
Yeah. So, anyway, thanks for being nerdy with us. And come back again next time. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends.
Yes, please.
And see you later. Bye. Goodbye.